30 classic Nintendo games crammed into one little box. That's what Nintendo cooked up in 2016 with the NES Classic Edition. A mini console boasting 30 fully playable NES games that can connect to any modern TV and be played with a brand new authentic NES controller, just with a new Wii nunchuck style connector. Booting it up, you're greeted with a super sleek menu where everything is laid out on an easy to navigate list, with a stylized 8-bit interface and an incredibly catchy song remix of 8-bit Nintendo sounds. At the top, you've got a menu where you can find display options, settings, and language options, and a link to online game manuals for each of the games that you can find on Nintendo's website. This thing boasts a pretty robust library of games with most of the first-party heavy hitters, along with some essentials from Konami, Capcom, and Tecmo too. The games included are Balloon Fight, Bubble Bobble, Double Dragon 2, Dr. Mario, Ice Climber, Mario Brothers, Super Contra, Tecmo Bowl, Donkey Kong Jr., Galaga, Ghosts and Goblins, Gradius, Pac-Man, Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3, Castlevania 1 and 2, Excitebike, Final Fantasy, Kid Icarus, Kirby's Adventure, Mega Man 2, Metroid, Ninja Gaiden, Punch-Out, the non-Mike Tyson version, Star Tropics, and Zelda 1 and 2. This list covers a huge spectrum of games, and for most people it's probably enough. For one price, you get everything from arcade classics to sports to role-playing games. But obviously, you're stuck with what's on the box since there's no support for expanding the storage with something like an SD card or, physical copies of games. Looking at the console itself, on the front you have the power button and the reset button. The power button recesses when you press it. And in the back you have the HDMI port and the power port. You can use pretty much any USB cable, but I believe the one that it came with is the only one that really works super well consistently and can't give you any problems. But I honestly am just using a cable I found around the house. One thing I do need to bring up about this is that it comes with one controller. It's a really nice controller, but the cord it comes with is just insanely small. I don't know if I can get this all on camera, but actually yes I can, and I think that's the problem. This thing is way too short. You basically have to have a cable extender to use this at any distance, and if you want a second player, that's a second cable extender, so that is one other big downside to this thing. But hey, for $60 for all of these games and a controller, it's not a bad deal at all. The games themselves play perfectly fine, it's all emulated, and I'm sure that there's stuff that super technical people could nitpick, but as a casual player, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between playing on the NES Classic and playing on a real NES console. A benefit over playing on a real console, though, is the support for save states. At any point during any game, you can tap the reset button on the console to go back to the home menu. From there, you can save your place in the game in up to 4 different slots, and you can pick it back up anytime you want. There's also support for 3 different display styles: a 4:3 aspect ratio that emulates the stretched width of your average CRT, a pixel perfect style that renders a perfectly square image, and a hybrid 4:3 scanline style that overlays that iconic fuzz of a CRT display on any HD TV. I like the option to have the scanline look, but I prefer the 4:3 or pixel perfect styles for general everyday use. I just like that clean look. Still, the scanlines look good to me, and if you want to maximize your nostalgia, that's probably the route to go. Of course, the elephant in the room here is that it's 2024. If you have a Nintendo Switch with the subscription plan, you have access to a whole catalog of emulated NES games, along with the Super NES, and even more if you have the expansion pack, along with save states, a CRT filter, online multiplayer, special bonus versions of some games, and the ability to rewind games in real time. But that doesn't mean the NES Classic doesn't still have its advantages. For starters, if you're anything like me, it's hard to deny the appeal of a physical console that just looks like a shrunken NES from the 80s. It's so small, look at it. Complete with a corded NES controller and a full custom interface. Plus, this thing is a one-time purchase that doesn't require any additional subscription to keep playing. You have these games forever. No one can take the NES Classic away from you. Not even Nintendo. But again, there is that issue of only 30 games. Nintendo's adding games to the Nintendo Switch service all the time, while this is stuck with just the 30 games it came with. Or is it? Did you know that in 2024, it's incredibly easy to mod the NES Classic thanks to a thriving online community of enthusiasts? I don't want to show you the exact process for fear of Nintendo striking me down with an army of lawyers, but let's just say that all you need is the USB cord that comes with the console itself, a PC, and an internet connection. From there, you're able to do things like add more ROMs to expand the library of games built into the device at will, with full compatibility for the display filters and the save save states. This means that you can access things like Castlevania 3, DuckTales, or even the original Mike Tyson version of Punch-Out! The possibilities are endless, at least as endless as the full NES library is endless. But what if you want to go beyond the NES library? You can also add games from other consoles to be emulated through RetroArch, including stuff like the Game Boy Color to play The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Ages, or even the Game Boy Advance for some Pokemon Sapphire if you're in the mood. Want to go full-on cursed? Here's Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for the Sega Genesis running on my NES Classic Edition, being played with an NES controller. And just to push it as far as possible, here's The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64 running on this too. Though with this, you'll have to use something with joysticks like the Wii Classic Controller Pro, and from what I can tell, performance for N64 games is hit or miss. Still, the fact that this is even possible is incredibly cool, and this gives this little retro toy brand new life, even in 2024. This thing is incredibly versatile, and there's so many options for expanding it with even more classic games, and that alone makes it a really cool little machine to have, even if you do already have the Nintendo Switch subscription. Of course, there is the problem of getting one of these. Nowadays, you can find them secondhand online, but you're probably still going to pay at least what one would cost brand new back in 2016. And for that price, you could probably get something a bit more full-featured and modern, but still, this is an official thing made by Nintendo, and at least for me, that considerably increases the appeal. So, to answer the question, is it worth buying an NES Classic Edition in 2024? It really just depends on who you are. If you're looking for a cost-effective, customizable box to throw retro games and emulators on and don't care who made it, then no, definitely not. If you're looking for a genuine piece of Nintendo history that looks really cool in a collection and can also give you pretty much endless entertainment, then yes, get one. As someone who likes having a physical collection of games and gaming merchandise, this thing is so much cooler to me than just emulating games on a PC or some random box I can find on Amazon. And while I don't use this all the time, I'm still really happy to have it as part of my collection. In 2017, Nintendo released a follow-up based on the Super Nintendo, and this thing is equally cool, but after this, Nintendo never really released any more of these classic-style consoles. I assume this is probably because of the Nintendo Switch Online stuff filling that gap. Also, Nintendo is still kinda sorta hitting that niche with their re-releases of classic controllers with wireless capabilities, and these are meant to be used with the Nintendo Switch Online games. They've released a bunch of these. There's the one for the NES, I have the Super Nintendo one, the Nintendo 64 one, and even one for the Sega Genesis, a console that Nintendo didn't even make. This might be the closest we get to more mini consoles, but I still want to see a Nintendo 64 or even, unlikely, a Nintendo GameCube. Still, I wish they kept making these for future consoles like the N64, because I love having these little toys that are both genuinely fun experiences, but simultaneously unique collector pieces. But for now, we'll just have to wait and see if Nintendo ever revisits this idea someday. Until then, let me know in the comments, do you own one of these? Should I make a follow-up video for the Super Nintendo Classic? Are you subscribed to my Patreon? These absolute legends are, including That's Ash and, Egg. Oh, in the Played Every Game tier, along with these wonderful people that you see on your screen right here. Thank you all so much for your support, and thank you, person who's watching this, for hanging around until the end. I'm still working really hard on the next I Played Every Game video, and I'm so excited to share it with you. For now, though, have a fantastic day.